Hey everyone, and thank you for tuning in again live today. It is Monday, April 22nd. It is noon here on the East Coast, and I am your host for today, Jason Leeser, and welcome to Skill Building Monday Drawing Group live on the Reinventing the Tattoo Network. If this is working for you, please let us know in the comments and in the chats, and please tag a friend who loves tattoos. Maybe it's someone interested in getting into the industry. Maybe it's someone that's looking to get, a deeper understanding of what goes on in our process. Maybe it's an enthusiast. Maybe it's a cousin or a friend or a brother or sister or mother or father. Tag everyone you know. We always appreciate it. And welcome to Guy Aitchison's Reinventing the Tattoo Community, where tattooers, apprentices, collectors, and the curious are encouraged to join in these live streams, real world events, to share and inspire and ultimately create better art and tattoos together. We beam out nearly every day, and with your help, we have evolved into a quality network of amazing live and on demand tattoo and art shows that have all been receiving rave reviews. You can find Reinventing the Tattoo at www.reinventingthetattoo.com. You do not have to subscribe right away. We do have a number of different features for you to try it out before you purchase a subscription. Starting out with a sample webinar from the Reinventing the Tattoo Canon. Another option is to get some free advice about your unique goals from Guy Aitchison. And the final option to try out Reinventing the Tattoo is to take a comprehensive tattoo history course from Jay Brown. For fellow tattoo history nerds such as myself, trust me when I say that tattoo history course is packed full of information that is awesome. The people that have worked on that project have really done their homework. Trust me when I say it's amazing. You can also find Reinventing the Tattoo at reinventingthetattoo.com, a full event schedule with full weekly and special event live stream details. For example, if you wanted to join today's show, you could go through and you could click on the event calendar and you could find a direct link to jump into today's live stream. At reinventingthetattoo.com, you can also find access to our Reinventing 24/7 channel. It's pretty cool. It's got 13 different episodes playing any given time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that is accessible through all web-enabled devices, smartphones, tablets, you name it. And it's all right there at www.reinventingthetattoo.com. And while you're there, maybe you want to see what kind of on-demand seminars we have available. Well, guess what? We've got seminars available from over 20 world-class tattoo artists, ranging from a skull seminar from Bob Tyrell to Andre Malcolm, who did a full koi fish half sleeve seminar. Pretty awesome. That and a whole lot more, all available once again at www.reinventingthetattoo.com. You can also find us in both of the app stores, the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store, as well as our Reinventing the Tattoo YouTube channel, our Reinventing the Tattoo Roku channel, which, much like our Reinventing the 24/7 channel, has 12 to 15 different episodes going at any given time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's great for your smart TVs, just a heads up. And you can also find us in all of the major podcast directories such as Apple and Spotify. Um, Most people just open up their browser and do a quick search for Reinventing the Tattoo, and guess what? You'll find it all, except for the book, which is still currently out of print. I have no idea if they plan on printing another one, but for right now, it is out of print. If you come across a copy of it, please let me know. I would like to purchase another copy. And once again, if this is working for you, please let us know in the comments and in the chat, and please tag a friend who loves tattoos. Also, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button down at the bottom of the page. Just lets us know that people are watching. This way, you won't miss out on any future episodes or shows coming up in the future. We have a number of weekly staple shows that we always encourage people to tune into. Starting off our week on Mondays at 9 a.m. with Drawing for Tattooers with James Wisdom. We get to go through and do a deeper dive into basic drawing techniques and strategies that help us get back to our roots of being a fine artist in the tattoo world. It's absolutely phenomenal. I jump on every chance I get. I'm usually up pretty late, but I still try to make an effort to wake up and be there early in the morning. And that is at 9 a.m. East Coast time, drawing for tattooers with James Wisdom. Following that, on Mondays at noon, you have this show, which is the Skill Building Monday Drawing Group. And that's hosted by me, where we get to go through and we get to work on different skills that we might want to improve upon. Maybe it's contrast or light source, maybe it's Procreate tips and tricks, maybe it's ways to think about things differently or composition. These are all skills that we can always work on to improve. And once again, that takes place at noon on Mondays, the Skill Building Drawing Group with me, Jason Leeser. Capping off Mondays at Monday evenings at 9 p.m., we have a subscribers exclusive drawing group with Cindy McAndrew from the Reinventing the Tattoo Network. And that is only available if you have a subscription to the Reinventing the Tattoo Canon, Reinventing the Tattoo Evolution, or the Monday Night Exercise subscription. So that is only accessible there. I can tell you from personal firsthand experience, these Monday night drawing groups hosted by Sandy are absolutely phenomenal. I've been doing them for quite a long time. And if you look at the work I was doing when I first started taking those Monday night courses and the work that I'm doing now, you'll see a remarkable development in what I've been able to achieve and those core concepts that I've been able to really hone in on over the years. Once again, that's 9 p.m. Monday evenings. Following that, on Tuesdays at 11 a.m., we have the Tattoo Weekly Show with Gabe Ripley, Lauren Gregory, and Fawn Baker. Um, Absolutely great place to go to find out what's going on in the tattoo world as far as legislation, restrictions, news, upcoming events, new technology, all that kind of stuff. That's all discussed in the Tattoo Weekly with Gabe Ripley, Lauren Gregory, and Fawn Baker at 11 a.m. Tuesday mornings, East Coast time. On Wednesdays at noon, we have the Tattoo Now show with Gabe Ripley, where we get to go through and do a deeper dive into the business aspects behind tattooing. Maybe it's advertising and marketing strategies. Maybe, we're talking about travel visas and working in different countries. Maybe we're talking about, budgeting and financing, all of that and more. Once again, that's Wednesdays at noon, the Tattoo Now show with Gabe Ripley. Following that, capping off the week, Thursdays at 6 p.m., we have the Tattoo Collecting 101 podcast with Fawn Baker, where we get to go through and share some of our stories about our tattoo collections and the experiences we've had along the way. That's 6 p.m. on Thursday evenings. We also have two very special live events coming up. The first is May 17th through 19th. Reinventing the Tattoo will be live in Columbus, Ohio at the Hell City Tattoo Convention. Hell City is one of the premier tattoo conventions in the country. It is where, if you want to see the all-stars and the who's who in the tattoo world, take a look at Hell City. We have special guests this year that include Paul Booth. He will be tattooing live. Derb Morrison, Joe Capobianco, the legendary Joe Cap. I've been looking at his work since I was in high school. Jimmy Litwalk, Nico Perez, Ty McEwen, James Vaughn, Jesse Levitt, Ron Earhart, Marshall Bennett, and of course, yours truly will be there as well, tattooing. So if you wanted to book an appointment with me and you live in the Columbus, Ohio area, or you plan on traveling to the Hell City Tattoo Convention, please let me know. I still have a few spots open, and I would be happy to get anyone out there that's watching this in for a tattoo at Hell City. Following that, June 23rd through 25th, also in Columbus, Ohio, we have the first ever Tattoopreneur Conference, and that is a tattoo entrepreneur conference. And that is hosted by Reinventing the Tattoo Live. And we will be at the Red Tree Gallery. And that is co-hosted by Dark Age Studios, owned by Rember. Name might sound familiar with you. Does a lot of very kind of cool, surrealist stuff. That is going to be 3 days of business, art, and tattoo seminars. And we have got some incredible people that will be presenting at that, including Bob Tyrell. He will be there doing a black and gray seminar. Haley Adams will be there, most likely presenting on outer space stuff because she absolutely rocks at that. Jake Meeks will be there from the Fireside Tattoo Network. Don't want to miss him. James Wisdom will be there as well. Rember will be presenting. I will also be presenting a seminar on Procreate for beginners. This is entry level stuff. If you would like to sign up for a seminar or for the event, please by all means do so. And you can find that by going to the Reinventing the Tattoo website. Would like to go through and take a minute to thank some of our sponsors and some of the people that make these shows happen, starting off with worldtattooevents.com, the largest, most comprehensive resource for tattoo events worldwide. So if you are looking to book a tattoo at a convention, or if you want to go and work at a tattoo event at a city or town near you, or maybe it's one you plan on visiting, it's how I book all my vacations, take a look at worldtattooevents.com. That way you don't miss out on anything coming up. Would also like to say a very special thank you to tattoonow.com. Technology for tattooers. This is the leading edge in professional development, management, and digital tools for tattooers of all levels. They are 100% competitive with any type of CRM, mailing list, or scheduling software out there. They also build websites upon request. So if you are looking to get more people to come through the door to get the kind of tattoos that you really want to do, if you're looking for better client retention, or maybe just a way to streamline your booking process, take a look at tattoonow.com. They've literally been doing this kind of stuff for over 20 years. You cannot go wrong. Would also like to say a very special personal and professional thank you to Guy Aitchison at guyaitchison.com. He is the founder and inspiration behind Reinventing the Tattoo. You can go to guyaitchison.com where you can pick up a copy of his Biomech Encyclopedia, some of his tutorial DVDs. He also has countless fine art prints and the occasional original painting, all for sale at guyaitchison.com. Would also like to say a very special thank you to the Apprenticeship Diaries with Amy Nichols, in my opinion, one of the best resources for tattoo apprentices and apprentice hopefuls. If you are looking for more information on how to get into the industry, if you are looking for information on what a good apprenticeship is like, or maybe what to look out for in a tattoo apprenticeship, take a look at the Apprenticeship Diaries with Amy Nichols. It's a podcast. It's free. Feel free to go online, do a search for it. You cannot go wrong. As always, we ask that if you like today's show, please post a positive review on the channel. Once again, hit that like and subscribe button. That way you don't miss out on any other episodes. It also helps us get the word out. If you would like to host a Reinventing the Tattoo event, become a sponsor of our community, or, if you are looking for a fine art or a tattoo critique, you can always email management at reinventingthetattoo.com, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. Kind of wraps up the intro for today. Today we've got a very, very kind of interesting topic to be discussed. We'll be discussing skin breaks in tattoos. It's not something that's usually, brought up or thought about, but it can really, really make a difference with the way that we compose images and how readable these images are in the skin once they've been executed. We've got Creatures Cave watching live from YouTube. What's going on? Welcome, welcome, welcome. We will be discussing skin breaks. Now, skin breaks are something that can be referred to in any number of different ways. Sometimes I like to refer to skin breaks as negative lines. Basically, areas around certain parts that you leave skin tone, you leave a little break in the tattoo so that the skin shows through. That helps it become more legible. And I'm currently perusing some of my drawings to show some pretty good examples. Skin breaks can be very, very beneficial. Let's see. When it comes down to just how readable an image is, it helps put emphasis on certain parts. Um, let's see. And will help you determine certain pieces outside of other pieces. Hmm. No, that one's collab sheet. Let's see what I've got going on with. I'll just pull up one of my previous appointments. This way you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Where was. Where did that go? Where did I leave that? I should have been a bit more prepared today, and I apologize for that, folks. Nah. Where's the one that I had up before? Perfect example. And we'll switch this over. So, this is a design I came up with for the Puerto Rico Tattoo Convention. Tiny little one-shot jammer, nothing crazy. But I did kind of throw like a little bit of like a lighter, maybe flesh tone in the background. Don't know how well that's coming across. It looks a bit too peach. There we go. Something like that. I always like to work on neutral tone backgrounds simply because it gives you a better idea of what's going to be able to show through when it's actually on the skin. Whether it's a skin tone or just a neutral gray tone, it doesn't really matter too much. But it does give you an idea. As far as skin breaks are concerned, I'm just going to go through and merge some of these. Flatten. Cool. I'll work off of this. So skin breaks are little areas like you'll notice. Let me create a new good. Yeah, that'll do. Cool. So you'll notice I don't color all the way up to the lines. Let's make this a little bigger. That would be considered a skin break. Skin breaks typically include outlines as well. So if this were to be a true skin break, I would actually go through and erase a little bit of this. And it doesn't seem like, it's really going to pay too much attention or it's going to have too much of an impact on anything. But after a while, what you start to realize is that it really does help isolate certain things. Um, Not only that, but it helps control the viewer to where certain aspects and objects are within the piece. Um, so it can really kind of help you focus where you want people to look. So I would give this a bit of a skin break here. And already you can see that these leaves are standing out a bit more against everything else. So it's kind of pushing them forward even a little bit more than they were before. Same thing. Now, you don't always have to leave a skin break. Sometimes you want to keep that to use some background color inclusion. And a good example of that aspect of what I'm talking about is over here. I really like this blue glow I put inside the skull. And I did this nice blue outline around the snail itself and around the skull, but I wanted to include that. So what I did was on this brown layer for the snail, I left a bit of a skin break, which I actually went through and filled in with that same bluish glow and that same blue tone around the outlines. And that gives this like inner glowing light from where it's resting. Once again, it helps you separate out certain pieces from other pieces in a composition. Now, I don't always do that. I have been doing that a lot more lately, and that's kind of why I was trying to pull up a good example. This is a good example of how certain things could benefit from a skin break. Let me turn that off so you can see a little better. So right now, if you'll notice, there's a couple of spots up here. Let's see. Yep. That's red. Yes. So I've got a few spots up here. This area over here. It looks like this horn over here. This area down here could really use some. It gets really busy in some of these areas, and you start to lose the different aspects of where certain things are just based on um, where they sit and how busy things can get. So, for example, if I wanted to go through, that's there. So we'll do something similar. Cool. If I wanted to go through and really create some good skin breaks to really help this stand out a bit more and to really help create some nice separation, I would actually go back through, and I do a lot of this during the design process, and I'll actually create a secondary outline outside of where I know my black lines are going to be, just to make sure that I've got enough separation between elements to really help certain things stand out. You know, by creating this tiny little skin break, it's really going to help. I mean, you can even see it from a distance there. You can start to really see and define things a bit more than they were before. Um, it's just kind of a little trick that certain people use a lot. Some people use it more than others. Um, I myself like to use it, whenever I can, whenever the design calls for it, because it really does help create a greater sense of depth, and it just helps you keep focus on what's what and what is where. As we go through and we do this with the even if it's a bit more translucent, even if it's a bit more faint, that's fine. It doesn't have to be, perfect. But what this is going to do, and I'll zoom out in a second, is show you exactly where I want these borders to be. So where that part of the horn kind of blended into the body a little bit, by creating that skin break, it really helps us go through and push things forward. Now, as far as the skin break is concerned, if I was executing this as a tattoo, I would actually, maybe I wouldn't mark this down in my stencil, and do like a gray line or anything like that to block it off. But what I would do is, as I was shading the body of the dragon, I would be bringing it in, but I would be stopping, and fading it in towards the horn so it would get lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter as it moved closer towards that horn. And I would only color or shade up to this skin break area. And that's going to allow the skin tone to show through, and it's going to allow things to stand out way more than they ever did before. This is one of many ways you can use skin breaks in a tattoo design. Another way would be to go through and create a negative space or a skin break kind of, and I hate to say this, and I really hope, you know, it's not going to get flagged for copyright infringement or whatever, but you can almost create like a swoop. And I think Nike, the reason why I said that is because I'm pretty sure Nike actually has that term trademarked. But, even from behind the head, I could create this like little negative space swoop that, I could really go through, and I would just leave that as a skin break. That would help certain things out. Now, it's a bit of a different skin break, different type of a skin break than what I had discussed earlier. But once again, what this is doing is it's helping you go through and separate out certain parts of the image. So by having the swoop coming over top, and I think this should actually be a little bit later. There we go. By having this swoop coming over top, it's pushing everything else behind it back. So it's creating another layer of depth. So you've got this part that your eye is going to see the head as being in front of, where's my note layer? Cool. So the head here, this edge of the head, your eye is going to tell that that is in front of here, right? And that this negative swoop is actually in front of the body behind it, right? So right there, you create 3 layers of depth within a piece without even really trying. And it's a bit less work that you actually have to do in the tattoo. Um, you know, could save you some time. Who knows? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. So that's another type of skin break um, kind of, technique that you can utilize. Let's see. A third is kind of like an ambient skin break. And that's basically where you have just a much lighter washed out area. For example, back here, if I took that and blended that out, that could create a break in the skin where this is all just super, super light gray wash, nothing crazy. I'd probably do that over here as well and just kind of wash it out. So it would give you a bit more separation between the objects. They can be really, really helpful, really useful tools to go through and, not sure if I like that one, like what I just did. But it can go through and help you clarify shapes. It can help you clarify objects. It can help you create that sense of light versus dark. Plus, that way you don't get into the basic principle of light on light or dark on dark, which you only really want to use very, very limitedly, because that's where you get things that become completely obscured. So you always want to try to keep that separation there. If you wanted to fade out, say some of these black perimeter lines, you'd have to be kind of careful, just because if we do light on or dark on dark and we gave this a nice big dark drop shadow in the background, well, there goes part of our hair, part of the beard hair, right? We can't even really see it anymore. But if we go back through and say we give this, this nice dark drop shadow, but then we take our eraser tool because it's handy and it's dandy, and we leave that tiny little bit of a gap, right, in between this background that we have going on and the tip of this horn or the tip of the beard, you will actually see that it stands out and we're not losing any of the volume or any of the aspect of that beard because dun, 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 because we're not going dark on dark. So it helps preserve certain shapes. This is really important when you do run into issues like that. I believe it was James Gurney that had the windmill principle, which was discussed in one of the Monday evening drawing groups. If you do not know about those, I would highly recommend you dive into them because they are fantastic. But the windmill principle pretty much says that there are certain times when you want to go dark on dark or light on light, but it's very, very rarely. Um, by keeping some skin breaks in there, and you'll see a little bit of a skin break here with some of these drop shadows created by the beard. If I were to do that, I wouldn't go right up to the edge of the beard because not only would that create a lower drop shadow, but it would get too confusing with how dark this beard already is. So it's a way to create that sense of depth. Another great one is this area here. It's a good example. I've left all of that area open, a couple of lines, but once again, if I was going to go through and really tweak this, I would go through and actually erase all of this so there wouldn't be even lines connecting to it, and that would help separate out this thumb on the dragon from the dragon body below it. But you can see certain lighter areas, if you will, that have kind of left open just to create that little bit of separation. Here's one. And we've got another one. Same here. And here. And here. Just by going through and giving it that little bit of a lighter tone, it really helps us separate out certain aspects of what's going on in this image. This area here would definitely need one. Same thing over here. Now, I do caution people not to use skin breaks on areas that are part of the same plane of existence. Use it really help to separate out certain things that you really want to push and pull the depth on. For example, I wouldn't use a skin break here by this finger of the dragon. I wouldn't do anything like that simply because this hand is on the same plane of existence, right? So even though this hand is moving backwards in space with the number of fingers, where those fingers are positioned in perspective, I would not use it to separate out any of the fingers because that wouldn't really make sense. You want this hand to be viewed as being one hand. You don't want this finger separated from this finger, separated from this finger, because now you're looking at creating three planes of existence within a hand. That's not always the best way to do it. I'm not saying sometimes it's not warranted. I'm just saying I wouldn't do it in this instance because I want this hand to be on a plane of existence. I want this hand to be on a plane of existence. This body behind both hands to be on a plane of existence. This part's a plane of existence that's separate from here. This, even though it is moving forward, I do want this to show it's moving from one plane into the next plane. I did want to show that this horn was further forward and on a different plane of existence than the body behind it. Same thing with the beard here. I wanted to show the separation between the beard and the body because I wanted those to be on two separate planes. I want this part of the beard here and here to be on two separate planes other than the hand that's behind it. So it really helps you pick out and focus on different aspects, and it helps you really put more emphasis exactly where you need it to be. Um, just some food for thought, a little skill to work on. Um, yeah, I don't have too much for you guys today. So if you guys wanted to jump in, ask me a couple of questions, I'm always down. All you got to do is type in a question in one of the chat areas, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube or anywhere else. Feel free to drop me a question. I'll be happy to answer it. Um, otherwise, I'm just going to kind of be doodling. Might actually start working on this acrylic painting I'm trying to have ready by Hell City. So if you guys want to stick around for that, you're welcome to. If not, and if no one has any questions, you know, um, I don't want to say head out because, I always like having people around to watch me. But um, yeah, feel free to ask any questions you might have. I'm actually going to switch the camera angle now because I have been working on this acrylic painting and I would like to work on it for at least a little while before I have to do more adult stuff, because everyone likes adulting and being responsible for things and whatnot. I don't, though, so try to avoid that kind of stuff just because that's me. Not that I avoid responsibility, but, things happen. Let me get some of this stuff set up. By the way, if anyone out there is looking for a really good brand of acrylic paints, check out Charvin. They're a little expensive. This is the kind of label that it's got. They're a little pricey, but yo, this acrylic paint is amazing. Um, it's pretty awesome stuff. It's not like super thick, but it is still kind of like medium body, so it's not going to be runny or anything. Um, I actually use it and paint with it almost like I paint with oils. It's got like the same kind of consistency. And for anyone out there that does wonder, yes, there is a parallel between acrylic paints, oil paints, and tattooing. Um, and there you can pretty much draw a parallel between any medium and tattooing because it's very easy to do that. Um, things are permanent when they go down with acrylic paint. It's not like you can lift it back up like you can with watercolors. You can't you can kind of dilute it a little bit like you would with a watercolor. But it's once it's dry, it's permanent. Let's see. Cool. There we go. And that's one of the main tie-ins between acrylics and tattooing. Once you lay that tattoo in, if you're laying down blacks, it's black. It's not going anywhere. If you're laying down color, it's color. It's not going anywhere. So I'm going to do a little bit of painting for you guys. Just trying to tweak some things. As I mentioned before, if anyone's got questions, I'll be happy to answer, but no one does. I'm probably just going to be painting here and talking to myself for a little bit. Not that I don't do that a lot anyway, but you know what I mean. Hopefully you guys can see this all right. But I've already blocked in my major tones. I've already gone through and, created large areas of tonal areas, tonal qualities. And now I'm kind of going through and doing some of the detail and some of the pushing and pulling. Just trying to create a bit more depth in certain spots. And I do that by using a almost like a thinned out glaze or a wash with these acrylics. And what that does is that helps create a semi translucent layer that will allow me to build up to the exact right value to create the tone that I need. Much like with oils, you got to lay down a little paint, move back, let it dry, then maybe a little more, move back, let it dry. That'll do. That'll be real nice. I am also using a basically a glazing medium. What that does is that allows the acrylic to stay wet a little bit longer so I can get a little bit smoother blends. Unfortunately, we do not have anything like that in the tattoo world. Um, but, maybe one day someone will invent something like that. That would be cool. That would really allow us to paint on skin a little bit better without completely tearing it up. Yep, just pushing this spot back a tiny bit more. This is a project I started working on a couple weeks ago. I'm sure some of you have noticed that the tattoo industry has hit like a 10-year slow season, where it seems like everything's slow. People might not be coming in as frequently. Um, Lord knows I still have a ton of projects out there where I haven't heard back from people about coming in anytime soon. So, that kind of hurts. What I always recommend is keeping some paints and brushes, maybe a canvas or some paper at the studio. And, anytime it ends up being a slower day, whip it out, man. Do a little bit here and there. And you'd be surprised at how quickly it all adds up. Because when you're working on any kind of a painting, especially something like this or something even bigger, it takes a lot of time. But if you chip away at it little by little, here and there, day in and day out, anytime you get, an hour or half hour or whatever that, you didn't expect to have, take it out, man, work on it. I think you'd be surprised at how quickly you can, knock something out, especially if you're like me and you paint for pleasure and not necessarily for a commission. Um, it's always nice to be able to go through and, have a couple extra minutes to, just kind of work on something that's going to help you put your mind at ease because, even though you might not be tattooing, who's to say you can't turn around and sell the painting after you've completed it, and now you've just made up for those tattoos that you missed out on, or for those tattoos that ended up no call, no showing you, or anything of that nature. Um, I had one of those this past week, and it was really depressing. I was all set and ready to go. I always give people a bit of a window of time to get in touch with me, let me know what's going on. Reached out to them after about a half hour, no response, cleaned up everything, and broke out this painting, started chipping away at it a little bit more. It's all it takes is just little by little by little. Little bit here, a little bit there. Right now, I'm just trying to pull some darks and some lights back in. Just creating a couple of light little glazes. Really kind of accent some contrasting areas. I'm not super worried about getting the underlying bass tones correct because I already have those blocked in. So right now, I'm just trying to do a little bit of finesse just to create some of these subtle areas of light and dark. Yeah, I challenged myself this year to do more, couple more realistic style paintings. I usually work in a more illustrative and graphic kind of style. This year, I definitely wanted to give myself a challenge. So I challenged myself to create some more realism. Um, Not that it's for anyone else but me, although everything I have is for sale. So if you did want to purchase this painting once it's complete, I'll be happy to sell it to you. Um, but it's just like it's something that I've never really spent too much time on in the past. I used to do a lot of figure painting, a lot of like, figure oil painting and stuff like that. Was never very fond of it, so I never really put too much emphasis on it. And not saying I didn't have the ability to do it, it just wasn't something that I chose to do on a regular basis. But this year I decided to challenge myself and, really kind of push myself to do a little bit better with it. I was looking at some of the artwork that I had done back in college, um, and I just ended up thinking to myself, man, I could probably do better than that right now. Why don't I try it out and just see what happens? So I always like issuing challenges to myself, but I'm also the kind of person where if I challenge myself to do something, it's gonna happen. There's no doubt in my mind about it. It If I speak it into existence, it is done. It just takes time sometimes. This is just a little bit of water just to thin it out. Yeah, working in an analog medium such as acrylics or oils, watercolors, whatever, it's critical. Absolutely critical to maintaining that hand-eye coordination and the motor function of being a tattoo artist. And some of you might have heard me talk about this story, but I remember being at a convention a couple years ago, and I remember seeing someone almost like it was Procreate. They tried to do like a two-finger tap to undo on someone's actual tattoo. And I refuse to ever get to that point where I only work in digital medium to the extent that, I get so conditioned to work in that way that I don't really grasp, um, the fact that I'm making some of these unconscious moves. And I mean, there was nothing wrong with the tattoo. It's not like it was, completely messed up or anything like that. But just that one thing, that one instance, that one experience really got me thinking about, working digitally, which I love to do and I do it often, but how that doesn't really necessarily help us with applying an actual tattoo. It's great for concept layout and all that stuff. I definitely view it as a valuable tool, but just a tool nonetheless. The real hard parts are in our minds, and that's where the real artwork takes place. It's the vision that we create. It's the um, the intuition that we have about what's going to look good through years and years of training and practice. Um, it's what that having that artistic vision is what really ultimately matters at the end of the day. And one of the best ways that you can hone that in is by working in an analog medium. Just my 2 cents on things, of course. Um, I am not the most interesting man in the world. My 2 cents is not worth $37 and change. I do wish it was. But I do like to think that, I speak about certain things that I've experienced. And this is definitely one of them. Tone that down a little bit. Got a little bit of a lighter tone over in this area. Once again, if anyone has any comments, questions, anything they would like to discuss or know more about, we'll be happy to discuss whatever it is you might desire. Just simply go through, shoot me a message in the chat box, or let's see if I can get back to. Yeah, that's what I thought. Where did my mouse pad go? There we go. Or you can always shoot me a direct message on Instagram at Philly Inc. Um, and I will get that, and I will be happy to answer your message if you do not want to ask your question publicly. Now, by no means do I say that everyone's got to work in acrylics or oils or watercolors or anything like that. There are definite parallels to tattooing in all mediums, whether it's pen and ink, whether it's pencil and paper, whether it's soft pastels, chalk pastels, oil pastels. There is always a parallel there. I think certain mediums are a little bit more parallel than others. Um, certain mediums, such as working with liquid acrylics, do typically tend to have a little bit more of that parallel going on, but you can always draw a parallel uh, to any artistic medium and tattooing if you look at it enough. Colored pencil's been used for, many, 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 many years to go through and train tattooers on the right way to color, on, using the right coloring techniques and stuff like that. It's very old school methodology, but it works nonetheless. Looks like I need a little bit more over there. See if that's the right tone. That'll do. There we go. And a little bit of black. Fade that into it. create that nice blend. I usually use a much bigger brush for this part for working in bigger areas just to get better gradients, just like you would in a tattoo. I'm not going to use a 9 mag to color in a full back piece, you know, especially if it's like one big image. No, you're going to use something size appropriate. Use a 15 mag, 23 mag, 35 mag, 45 mag, whatever you have available. Why would you paint a wall with a 1 inch wide brush? It makes no sense to do that. So it's all about efficiency. Certain configurations are a bit more efficient for coloring in large areas. The largest I ever like to go whenever I'm working with color, believe it or not, is like a 23 mag or 27. I don't like to go any higher than that when doing solid color. I just find it puts it in too quickly and too much of what I'm trying to achieve. So I typically tend to stay with something a bit more mid range. And I know for some people out there, 23 mag is like, oh my God, that's huge. It's not. Not by comparison. I've used 45s, I've used 35s, I've used 49s. And those are pretty ridiculous when it comes down to just how much area you can cover in one go. Looks like I need a little bit more on this little bridge area up here. We'll make this nice and defined. Really kind of show where the bones connect. Then we'll mix in a touch of white. I always appreciate it whenever anyone buys an original painting um, or anything like that. Big shout out to a friend of mine named Patrick, who purchased an original painting from me at the Lehigh Valley Convention. Um, really great guy. Definitely supports the arts, but he also recognizes that anytime you purchase an original painting from someone, you're not just buying a work of art that they created, you're buying time out of their life that they took to create it. Um, Regardless of how long that painting or that drawing took to create, that's time someone spent creating that work of art just to go through and have you hang it on a wall. That's something that anytime I purchase an original, I'm very, very conscious of that that's time that they could have been doing anything else, but they chose to work on that painting. They chose to work on that piece of art. And that is time that they spent in their life that they can never get back. It sounds kind of morbid when you say it like that. I guess I probably shouldn't phrase it that way, but it's the truth, you know? That's time that they took out of their life. You're literally buying time in someone's life when you buy an original work of art. You know, yeah, it looks cool, but, you know, they could have been doing any number of other things with the time it took them to create that image. I've got a Guy Aitchison, Craig Driscoll original painting hanging up on my wall. That's time from those two artists that they can never get back. They can never have that again. The time that they put into creating that work of art. So it's one of my prized, all of my original works of art are prized possessions, and I treat them as such. because I recognize how long it took people to create it. Now, there are definite non parallels to painting and drawing. For example, if you don't like a drawing that you create, you can throw it out and do it again. Can't do that with a tattoo. If I don't like a spot on this painting, I can paint right over top of it. No one would ever know that I painted over top of it. You do not have that option when you do a tattoo. That is not something feasible. I mean, unless you immediately go through and cover it up after the fact. Take some time and plan it out. Cool. And if once again, if no one's got any questions for today, by all means, let me know. If you guys are good to go, if you've gotten out of this what you can get out of this for today, not that I've really discussed too much, but I was waiting on a few questions. No one asked any questions, so I feel I can probably just sign off here. Thank you, everyone, for watching today. As always, it has been an honor and a pleasure. And I do consider this to be a great honor that I can get on here and talk to all of you. So thank you very much for tuning in today. Even if you're watching the replay, thank you for taking the time out of your life to watch. Believe it or not, it's greatly appreciated. Um, well, good. I'm happy to hear that, Creatures Cave. Thank you very much. Until next week, everyone. Next week, we have episode 149 here on the Skill Building Monday drawing group. Until then, make sure you keep your hands busy, whether it's using a brush, pencil, or a tattoo machine. And thank you, everyone, for coming in. Oh, Spirit, you have a question about a sleeve. By all means. Oh, there you are. Sorry, man. Didn't even see you come in.
Hey, what's up? Yeah, I'm just waiting for my iPad to fire up. So, yeah, man, I have a client, and how much time we got? First of all,
We got as much time as you need.
okay, all right. So, I think this is like one of his first tattoos, but he wants a sleeve, and the sleeve it's a story of this kid who who goes on a journey and ends up on a mountaintop meditating. And it's
Okay.
I mean it's a fairly like you know what I mean well known story, but I'm just having some issues putting it together. And and then another thing is he wants like a waterfall, and then he wants the waterfall to turn into uh blue sapphires, and then he wants the blue sapphires to write his sister's name, and then he
No,
wants
no,
okay, yes,
no,
and then right,
no,
and then he and then he wants a little boy picking up one of the sapphires, and looking at it.
no,
I said the same. I
just
kind of
no.
said the same thing. Yeah,
No, it's too much.
this is too much.
Um, it is. When you get into situations like this where you've got someone that wants, all of these different ideas for different things, if it's his first tattoo and he wants to get his sister's name, then number one, I wouldn't take something that already has a deep meaning to begin with and try to incorporate a whole bunch of other stuff into that. You're making it too busy and you're taking away from the main idea, the main theme and topic. By trying to introduce all of these additional elements that, don't necessarily go with the story. Um, maybe sit them down and say, hey, listen, let's do the tattoo for your sister. Let's sit down and talk about your sister. What are some of your favorite memories with her? What are some of the things that really remind you of her? Dive into that a little bit
Right.
more,
And the thing
and
is,
then
it's
make
like
that a separate tattoo.
her name is her name means blue sapphire. So that's one of the reasons he wanted to have the blue sapphires write her name, Neela.
So what I would do in that situation is I would take that and separate that out once again into a separate tattoo. Maybe do a large rectangular blue sapphire. Maybe have her name inscribed in it, and do that as a separate tattoo. But
Hmm.
when you've got one solid concept for a sleeve, great. You could do everything from, maybe having like, say, lower arm, maybe the back of this, a back view of this boy's head, maybe with a walking stick or something like that, a path going up the arm into the mountains, and then maybe have, a sunset behind the mountains with this little boy sitting on top of the mountain meditating, kind of showing his journey going through and how he got there, right? You can throw a waterfall in there if you want to. Um, maybe use that for the backside of the arm, maybe back here, right along the tricep. That would give you a nice kind of flowing image coming down. Maybe even have like a little river going through it. That could work well too. But I think trying to create sapphires and then a name in the sapphires and, a little boy picking up the sapphire, too much, too much,
That's what I was
um,
thinking.
too much going on. There's way too much going on in that. I know it probably has a ton of meaning, but if it's their first tattoo, make sure to emphasize to them, like, listen, you've got all this open room. You've got your whole life to get tattooed. You know, there's no sense in trying to cram everything you want into one tattoo, not when you've got all of this other open space, especially if with your skill set, knowing that you can tattoo your butt off. I know that they're going to be so happy with that first tattoo. They're going to be coming back in for more after that.
Mhm.
So why try to, force everything into that? That's the way I would approach it personally. Um, with everything that you've described, you've got a lot of really great imagery to create a big dynamic storytelling sleeve.
Mhm.
Um, and really knock it out of the park. I would, you know, to me, I would stick with that one concept. Um, if they really want the waterfall, do the waterfall. Cool. Throw that in there. It's part of the journey that they've been on. I'm not sure the name of the story that you're going with, but it kind of sounds like The Alchemist, but I could be wrong.
It
Um,
does a little bit, doesn't it? Yeah.
but there's also, if it is the story of The Alchemist, which by the way, I highly recommend everyone out there reads because it's a fantastic story. Uh, but look at there's so many other images and ideas that you can incorporate from that story into the sleeve. Um,
Hmm.
so I'd say stick with that as a main theme. I always try to tell people, listen, if you really want a good looking sleeve, you're limited to like three elements, three major things. Mountains, boy meditating on the mountain, cool, one. Maybe a path or a waterfall or a stream, cool, that's two, right? And maybe you want to show the boy starting out on his journey, that would be three. I wouldn't go any further than that because now you're looking at making everything smaller to incorporate all of these other things. And that's going to detract from the level of detail and the concept that you can put in.
There's a lion somewhere in there too. Like it's like there's a lion. There's a village where the boy goes into, and a lion attacks a village, and then the boy meditates and calms the lion down. And I was thinking about putting that imagery in there. Is that something? Do you think that that's too much? Just too much because all the things mentioned are they sound dope.
Well, I mean, look at basic composition, right?
Hmm.
So according to basic composition, you want to have your primary emphasis on your primary aspect, regardless of what that is. You know, if you want to emphasize the end goal of the boy meditating on the mountain, emphasize that. Um, you know, I wouldn't make that super tiny. I would make that pretty prominent. Uh, Once again, by adding more stuff into it, you have to make everything smaller to include these other things, especially something like a lion. You would want that lion to be a pretty decent size to get any kind of detail in there. Otherwise, it's going to be like a little cartoony lion. They're probably not going to be happy with it because they probably have this idea of like, oh, yeah, it's a lion. Cool. It's going to be super awesome and detailed. And like, you know, you're going to be able to see teeth and all that. No, you won't. Not if it's, you know, this big, you know, unless you did like a silhouette of one, that could work, you know, but you'd have to really plan your light source out as far as that goes in order to make sure that it's backlit so that you would only really see the silhouette. Um, you know, but once again, I think with what you've described to me, I think showing the boy on his journey through different parts of the story is going to be more than enough to create a great sleeve.
Mhm.
Um, you know, maybe if you wanted to show that specific scene, have that scene maybe closer towards his forearm. If that happened in the middle of the book, it makes sense to have it in the middle of the tattoo. So you
Mhm.
could still show, you know, a bigger blown up version of maybe like the back of the boy's head, his shoulders, upper torso, maybe holding a walking stick or something like that on the outside of the forearm. Keep that bigger, probably at least half, a third to a half of his forearm. That's going to put him closer towards you in perspective, right? So now as things progress, you're moving up the arm and you're moving further back in the distance. So you're creating this narrative in this scene, right? That can visually read as, oh, here's this person starting out on this journey. And as we see him go more towards the mountain, he's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. You know, that's where I would put the emphasis if you wanted more of the emphasis on the beginning of the journey. If you wanted the emphasis on things that he overcame or certain events, cool. Pick one or two of those, make those bigger, put those on the forearm, and then still have it leading back. I always like to look at the forearm and the things that are closest to us as the foreground, right? Build off of that. Because naturally when we're drawing anything, we're looking at a horizon line and a perspective line, right? So unless you've got a downward view on like the top of a building or a mountain or anything like that, your horizon line is going to be slightly above whatever's in the foreground, right? To show that perspective. Andy Chambers talks about this a lot during his sleeve seminar. He likes to pick one spot and create that horizon line, and then everything builds up to that and then goes from there, right? So anything above that, you would have mountains in the background. You would maybe have a little bit of a sky. Maybe you want the horizon line halfway up the bicep. Maybe if you wanted to have more sky, more background, stuff like that, maybe cut it down at the elbow or the top of the forearm. But that horizon line is always going to be slightly above where whatever you have in the foreground. That creates that illusion of depth and perspective in a scene.
That makes sense. So right at the elbow is right at the horizon line, and then
Right.
everything is past there is further back.
Further back. Correct.
That's okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. It's just one of many different ways to look at constructing a sleeve. But anything that's going to be closer to you is typically going to be lower and bigger than everything else because that's foreshortening. That's concept of perspective. Um, you know, depending on what they really want to emphasize, if they really want the emphasis on the conclusion of the story, now we're getting into a little bit more of a tricky area because a boy sitting on top of a mountain, you have to show the mountain. Still have to have a horizon line. Plus, you have to show the boy, right? So that needs to be the biggest emphasis and the biggest part of it. So now you're looking at moving your horizon line lower on the arm to really show this mountain that this boy climbed up, to sit on top of it and to meditate, to make that boy on the mountain, a decent size, to really show him sitting on a mountain meditating. I would even crop the mountain and have maybe the mountain, depending on if it's right or left arm, maybe even crop some of the mountain as it goes up at an angle, and have the boy sitting on like a little ledge to really show that he's sitting on the mountain, up at the top of the mountain. Obviously come up with some other stuff going on down at the bottom. But if that horizon line is here, right, on your arm, it's kind of hard to see, but maybe halfway, 3/4 of the way up the forearm, if that horizon line is there, that's where your mountain's going to start. So now you're looking at moving that mountain a lot closer. So it's going to be a lot bigger. You're going to end up cropping some of it out. Especially because if you want to do a boy sitting on a mountain, that boy's going to have to be, at least a couple inches tall.
Right. Right.
Just
You
to
know,
preserve the detail.
yeah, yeah. And that's kind of the issue I'm running into. Like, how do you keep the boy and not and how do you keep the boy and preserve the detail in the boy without, things going haywire?
It's tricky.
Yeah. Yeah.
In my opinion, you would have a lot of mountain. You could probably cram some other stuff in there in front of parts of the mountain, but you would be moving that horizon line lower to show the height of the mountain and to get that boy to look a lot bigger. I would definitely put something in the lower forearm area as just to create the perspective. Um, but that would be a bit of a tricky situation. Usually with mountains, I'll keep them mid-sized. I won't go super huge with them. That way I can cram just a tiny bit of a sky in the top of the background, maybe some clouds or, a sunrise or something like that, just to create a little bit of atmosphere. But, it gets to be super, super tricky when that gets concerned, um, because now you're messing with a lot of different perspectives and things like that if you really wanted to tell a story. Which, if the tattoo is based on a story, they're willing to give you that much room. Try to tell that story, the important parts anyway. Create a narrative, create a scene that shows the progression of this boy going up to the mountain. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of different ways you could take it, a lot of different concepts and things that you can do to go through and really illustrate the story. I would ask them what their emphasis is on, the conclusion or the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's a specific event that they want to emphasize in the story. Well, okay, now that you know your emphasis, you know that that's got to be the most prominent aspect to all of it. So you can really emphasize that. You can either make that the biggest part, put that in the most prominent position. You can give that the most contrast and depth. You can really go through, and I would really focus on that. If they really like the story of the boy sitting and meditating in front of the lion, do a big ass fucking lion, right? Upper arm kind of standing there. Maybe he's looking like he's ready to pounce. Maybe have the boy meditating. So if you were looking at the lion and the lion was coming at you and you saw the boy in front of you that was meditating in front of the lion, you'd be looking at the back of the boy's head, right? The shoulders, the back. That could make an incredible scene. I mean, you could easily do that as like a half sleeve, easy, because you could get all of the detail in that line that you wanted. You could make sure that everything was really nicely lit so that you had a lot of value going on in there. And you could really tell that the lion was behind the boy, but was coming at you, so you can really kind of play with that dynamic there. Um, I wouldn't do anything like a horizontal scene where you have boy and then lion next to each other, facing each
I
other
was
this way.
literally gonna do a horizontal scene.
I
What?
would not do that. I would do, if anything, a three-quarter view because that's going to create depth as opposed to just head on.
Uh-huh. I found something like this. I was gonna kind of use this as a reference.
That could work.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah. I mean, I would go with a different body posture with the boy,
Uh-huh.
um, especially if he's meditating in front of the lion. I would maybe find a three-quarter view of a boy meditating, looking away. And I would put that so that, that's slightly in front of the lion, and slightly larger than the lion to give it some perspective. And that would create
Mm-hmm.
more of a diagonal composition, and that's going to move your eye a little bit more.
Oh, that's and then it would give the image of him being in front of the lion and then calming it, like he's meditating. I think that would actually be a good idea.
Yep. Because
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah,
you really want to emphasize the fact that he's sitting in front of this lion meditating, right? That's part of the story. So make that happen. Um,
mm-hmm.
you can have them facing each other, and that's fine. But anytime you create anything as a horizontal composition, you immediately flatten things out, because any type of horizontal line, especially on something like an arm, almost creates a visual barrier, right? Because you have to have the ground, right? So unless that's all the way down by his wrist and you want it to wrap all the way around, which could work and that could look cool, but that means that that ground starts at the wrist. If you
Mm-hmm.
put the ground where the boy is sitting and meditating on up here, you're now creating that kind of a visual barrier where it's like everything up to this, and then you've got ground, boy, lion, and then background above it. And it creates almost like a visual stop by creating that depth with, boy, lion, um, so even offset it a little bit. So if this is the boy and this is the lion, maybe have part of it obscured, right? You create a visual sense of depth. And you could even offset a little bit, to show that horizon. Now you're creating a diagonal line where you can have things leading up to the boy. You can have things leading back from the lion. So you can create a much more dynamic and flowing composition.
Mm. Yeah, that
So
makes that
that,
makes a lot of sense. Because that makes sense because this way I was thinking about that being a problem, like because I was thinking I'm going to have to cut off the floor that they're sitting on some way,
yeah.
So I
But
wanted
if
to
you
leave.
have it so that it's more linear, more at a perspective, right? Now you can have things leading up to the boy, right? Coming up in this direction, right? And then you can have things leading from the lion backwards. So you can
Mm.
create a whole scene of depth.
So it's almost like a S curve. We get to utilize the S curve for you know I guess telling the story.
Yeah. And it
Okay.
it just creates more depth in that composition,
Hmm.
And that's, if you're creating a story, you want to show depth, you want to show dimension, you want to show movement. If you can move the eye from foreground to middle ground to background, well, actually, it would be foreground to middle ground to background, right? It's going to read more like a story. If you go with element, element, and then, maybe another element below that, and just kind of stick them on, that's great, but there's nothing that's going to tie anything together. You want to have overlapping objects. Overlapping objects immediately create that sense of depth and a sense of not necessarily story, but it creates a sense of perspective. Like you're really seeing these things moving in space. You're moving through the scene, through the images, and you're really creating this journey, visually speaking, that your eye is going on, moving through these different levels of depth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just something that I've picked up on over time. Um, not only that, but by offsetting. So let me see if I can do this again right. So by offsetting, say having the boy here, right, lion here, you can then throw something else back up here. So now you've just created a curve using 3 elements, right? Well, let me throw up my iPad real quick. It's probably easier to illustrate on the iPad. For this. Cool. So you've got, let's see, sketching. So we've got lion, boy, right? And then you can have something behind the line. Maybe it's the mountain. You're now creating this curve. You could also offset that with something down here in front of the boy. Maybe Lord knows what else. But you can now start to see this like S shape appearing,
Mm-hmm.
bringing your eye all the way through it. And you would have different aspects, different images in front of one another. So the boy would be partially obscuring part of the lion. If this is the lion would be obscuring part of the mountain in the background. So that would push the mountain further back. The boy would push the lion further back. Whatever you throw in front of the boy here would push the boy back in space. So you end up with all of these overlapping circles or overlapping elements that force you to look further into the background.
So it just keeps going further back and further back the higher up you
Bingo.
go.
Bingo.
Okay. Okay. Because I was wondering about how do we tell a story a on a body part, you know what I mean? We read from left to right and from, you know what I mean? Like how do we do this, you know?
Um, I'll show you another example. It's a sleeve that I did a while back. It's probably one of my favorite tattoos that I've ever done that really kind of illustrates a decent story. Where was that? That was.
Especially if it's like a story like boy leaves his village and then go, so it's like boy leaves village, swims through a river, makes the river calm, and then so it's like how do you go from leaving the village, are we going up, do you always have the his back turned to the camera, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a lot of back view, but there's not much you can do to like get away from that, if that makes any sense, because you
Yeah,
want to show a journey.
right.
Um, and if you, oh wait, maybe that was over here. That was under. Was it over here? I've got too much stuff on my iPad, man.
I know that's right.
Too much. Let's see. Maybe I threw it in this folder. And I've got everything in folders, and I try to keep it organized, but sometimes it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I know that's right.
Yeah, I think I've got something like 50,000 different images on my iPad.
Good gracious.
Yeah. Well, I've got a lot of like reference images for different things. Um, so it's between reference images and everything else I've got going on. Sketchbooks and photos, and you know, I'll do a tattoo and I'll take 30,000 pictures of it just so
Hmm.
that I can get that one good one.
Nice.
Where was okay? I'm getting closer. I know that. That was. Come on now. It was after that. It was after that. Um. Oh man, I'm gonna be so. No, that's pirate sleeve. Um. I'm gonna be so bummed if I can't find this because it's my favorite sleeve I ever did. Well, to date, to
Hmm.
date. I'm not saying I won't do more, but I mean, start to finish, this guy was an absolute champion, and he just sat really, really well. But he gave me an
Okay.
idea. He said, "I want a samurai and a tiger, um, and whatever else you think might look good." Cool,
Nice.
I can rock with that. Um, so I went through and I created this full sleeve for him that kind of, we sat down, we talked about everything. We talked about, what is he doing in life? Where has he been? Where is he going? Because he was just getting out of the military and he wanted to go through and he was becoming a cop. So he was going through the police academy. And I said, okay, well, why are you going through the police academy? And he's like, well, I kind of always felt like a protector of, my family. I always wanted to protect them. I wanted to protect my friends. I always wanted to make sure that, people were doing the right thing. Um, and I was like, okay. He's like that. And I was part of the military police. So to me, it was just kind of natural evolution. I was like, oh, that makes more sense. But, okay, I get it. Um, really awesome dude. And, we talked about it and I came up with this concept. Here it is. So it's just the line drawing, but he wanted a samurai and a tiger, right? So we did the tiger and we did the samurai, and based on what he was talking to me about being a cop and protecting his
Yeah.
village and all that stuff, we threw like a little pagoda with like this little farmer in the background. So you really got the sense that this tiger is attacking the samurai is protecting the village. Um, so you can really kind of see an element of a story going on here, right? I believe the top of his deltoid, you know, deltoid was here, bicep was here, forearm kind of tapered down, so it wrapped all the way around his arm. Um, but it looked, awesome,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Heck yeah.
but you see this kind of linear. Trying to find the right perspective of the tiger was an absolute nightmare, but so I ended up basically drawing the face. But you see this linear progression going through, moving backwards. I really wanted to kind of show that the samurai was in front of the mountains. So, I did do some of the mountains, but I didn't put any up here because that would have curved onto the top of his deltoid. Um, so it would have looked funky if I had had like mountains back here because that would have curved up and over the top of his deltoid too much. We have the parts of his helmet curve back here and here, curve onto the top of his shoulder, that's fine. That's not really going to be that big of an issue. But to have mountains up there curling back, it's not going to work the way that people think.
Right.
So I kind of had to do the mountains in the background here, and I wanted to show some other rocky cliffs and whatnot over in here. This was all kind of filler on the inside of his arm. Um, Same thing over here. This part is on the inside of his bicep. This is his deltoid area, right? This is on the inside of his bicep, so his bicep, kind of starts to curl around here. Tricep area, elbow was right around here, and the rest of it was pretty much forearm down to wrist here. So I blew everything up, made it huge, detailed
Mm-hmm.
the hell out of it. But I also kept those elements that really make it that kind of a story, right? This guy is definitely protecting his village, which is way off in the background over here. He's protecting his village from this tiger. Very easy, very simplistic story to tell. And I was able to go through and really detail everything, which was awesome. He loved it. I loved doing it. And it worked really well. Um, but that's one way that you can kind of use perspective elements to help tell a story.
So it's can use like just the fact that it meditated in front of a lion and calmed the lion down. I could just use that and then have little elements that also tell the story kind of in the background as filler.
Bingo. That way you can
Mhm.
really put the emphasis on the important part of the story, the part that you really want to emphasize. Blow that up, make that huge, show the perspective, and you're golden. They're going to be absolutely happy with that, especially if you throw in a couple of other things here and there. Maybe the river and a boy swimming in the river in the background. Maybe throw that on like the inside of his arm, coming off of like part of a mountain in the lion. Um, and having that kind of like wrapping around the front of the bicep and then curling back around and through. You could easily do that so that each panel could be part of a scene. The outer arm could be, the boy meditating in front of the lion, have the boy down here on the top of the forearm, have the lion up here with the mountains in the background, and have that be like almost the entire outer portion of the arm. The inside of the arm, the inside of the upper arm, you could even do a different scene, so you can really play off of the different panels available. But then that way it still tells that story.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, that definitely makes. Now, when you create a sleeve, like, do you create? Do you use the body maps uh stamp on Procreate?
No, I actually go through, I'll use Procreate to design it to scale. But I also go through almost like tailoring clothes. I'll measure out the exact length that it is from top to bottom. And then in one or two increments, I'll actually measure the area all the way around the arm in 1 to 2 inch increments, plot that out on Procreate. In fact, I think I have all of that plotted. I do. So it's kind of difficult to see, but I actually went through, measured out the person's arm, right? So this goes all the way down to 24 inches. So I know exactly how tall I need to make it. And
Hmm.
then at every 2 inches, I measured how wide that area of the body is.
Oh
So I
wow.
measured the deltoid, right? And if we overlay the design, you can see the deltoid. You can see this is the inside of the arm. So bicep would be here, right? Triceps coming down here. Elbow area is over here. Forearm would be here. This is the outer portion of the forearm. And then everything would wrap around and connect on the inside of the arm.
Mm.
Because that's the least viewed plane on the arm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it does.
So I actually will go through and I do this with everything. Let me pull up a back piece or a full front piece that I was working on. Here we go. So I literally take measurements of everything. This was a full frontal piece that I was working on my friend Sarah. And I've got, hip bone, top of the hip bone. I've got smallest point of the waist. I've got the width of the rib cage. I've got the point from her clavicle, her trachea, that little soft indent at the top of your collarbone. Where does that sit in conjunction with the tops of her collarbone? Um, you know, all the way down to what I call the danger zone. How big is the danger zone? Where do I need to go to avoid that? She wanted to bring it all the way down onto her thighs. Cool. Where do I need to stop on her thighs? So I got to measure that area out. Um, I I'm meticulous with this kind of stuff because when it comes down to doing large scale work, I want to go through, print one stencil, have that stencil fit perfectly, and not have to redo it again. Plus, you can visualize if you're drawing things out to scale, right? And you know exactly how tall it needs to be, you know exactly how wide it needs to be. You can plan things out accordingly. And then, if need be, you always have to come in for a fitting, right? To go through, print out the design in full scale, hold it up to them, wrap around their arm, make sure everything's going to fit right. Maybe things don't overlap as much, or if they do overlap, it's going to make sense. Go through, it up to them, make sure everything fits and goes exactly where you need it to go. Then you can book the appointment after that. But that way you kind of see it and visualize where certain spots are going to land in conjunction with their arm or their back or leg or wherever it is.
Mm-hmm.
You can go through and make sure everything's going to visually look good and you're going to hit all of those major planes and make sure that everything is interesting in every visible plane.
Okay, okay.
you know and I recorded a video a few years ago. I can send you the link. I recorded a video a few years ago on exactly how I go about laying everything out to scale in Procreate. It does require you taking measurements. I recommend getting like a little cloth tape measure. They usually sell them at like Joann's Fabrics or any kind of a fabric store. I think Michael's sells them as well. They're usually $1 on Amazon. Um, but I go through, I keep one in my top drawer at work. I keep a backup in the bottom drawer in my tool chest at work. I keep two at home just in case I need them. Um, they work phenomenally well. You tape the top part up, right? Let it hang, measure it out, do little hash marks for inches, right? Measuring all the way down. Then just hold your tape measure up, wrap it around the arm, measure out the circumference of the arm all the way down. Mark certain areas too, like where the elbow is, the ditch of the elbow, the back of the elbow, any where any existing tattoos might be. Make sure that you note that. Uh, so once you have those measurements, it's very easy to plot that out in Procreate on a canvas that's to scale. All right. Now you're drawing on something life size. All you got to do is print it out and it's life size. So to me, it just helped me figure out proportions, areas, things like that, and help make my compositions work a little bit better. Does that make sense? I think I lost your audio. Yeah, I'm not hearing anything from you right now. Hmm. Well, let me try this. I'm not seeing anything registering on the audio levels. It's weird too because I can still hear a little bit of background, but
Okay.
mm,
Yes,
there you go. Now
yes,
you're back.
this is great.
And I think we lost it again.
Test and 1, 2, 3.
Oh, there we go.
Test two.
Yep, yep.
1, 2, 3.
Good
Test
to go.
one,
Good to
two.
go.
Test
Good
one,
to
two,
go.
three. Oh, that's my fault. I'm not.
And I think we lost you again. That's all right. Spirit, you got my number, man. Hit me up a little bit later. I'll shoot you a text with the link to that
Testing.
video.
Testing. Testing.
Cool. It's weird. I'm hearing you say testing
That's
right now,
weird.
and you're not saying
Let
anything.
me see. Let's see if I can.
There's a huge audio delay going on. It's wild. It's the interweb.
Testing. Oh, here we go.
Cool. Well, guys, thanks a lot for joining today. I hope you guys learned something. Until next week, episode 149. Feel free to hit me up if you have any questions. Take a look. Instagram's right there, or you can email me, Jason at reinventingthetattoo.com. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Till next week, guys, keep those hands busy, and I will catch everyone next week for episode 149 here on Skill Building Monday. Cheers.